What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has scheduled a trip to multiple different countries, including Taiwan. And while you can see here, China is not very happy about it. China fires latest threat over Nancy Pelosi's possible Taiwan visit, which has now been confirmed. She is going there. Here's what China has to say. China's foreign ministry spokesperson Zhao Lihan has warned the US on Monday that Beijing, quote, will not sit idly by if Nancy Pelosi does visit Taiwan, saying, quote, the Chinese side has repeatedly made clear to the US side over serious concerns over Pelosi's potential visit to Taiwan and our firm's opposition to the visit, Zhao said during a news briefing on Monday. Quote, we are fully prepared for any eventuality, he added. The People's Liberation Army will never sit by idly. China will take strong and resolute measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. As for what measures exactly we will take, let's wait and see if she dares making the visit. All this over just visiting the country. Yeah. But you can see here multiple different sources now reporting that Nancy Pelosi is to visit Taiwan despite warnings from China. And remember that the US and Taiwan have a decades old pact. The Taiwan Relations Act, the United States makes available defense articles and services as necessary to enable Taiwan to maintain a sufficient self-defense capability and maintains our capacity to resist any resort to force or other forms of coercion that would jeopardize the security of Taiwan. This is a bill, this is a pact, this is a treaty that was signed decades ago with Taiwan. So this is kind of something that we're beholden to, right? And actually, Republicans are actually giving a lot of support to Nancy Pelosi. Here's Republican Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan, on Fox News saying that we shouldn't back down to Chinese threats. Let me know your thoughts here on this. Check this out.
All right, for more on U.S.-China tensions, joining us now is Republican Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. He serves on the Senate Armed Services, Commerce, Science, and Transportation, and the Environment and Public Works Committees. You're a busy man. Thanks so much for joining us
to be here,
on this Saturday afternoon. Let's start with the China tensions happening right now. We've got this back and forth going on between the two administrations over this call with President Biden on whether or not he brought up human rights issues. China says he didn't. And now we've got the speaker on her way to Asia, possibly touching down in Taiwan. Do you think she's actually helping the president's posture when it comes to our policy with China?
Well, look, at this point, if the speaker goes, I think you're going to see a lot of bipartisan support for the trip. Okay. I certainly will be supportive of her trip, and I think you're going to see evidence of a lot of senators supporting it. And here's why. We cannot let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where senior American officials travel. I was in Taiwan last year with a bipartisan group of U.S. senators. American senior officials, including previous speakers of the House, have traveled to Taiwan for decades. And right now, you know, there's a lot of things the speaker has done that I don't agree with, but I think it's time for Americans to close ranks on this ability to travel to Taiwan which we do regularly, and not let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where Americans go.
Do you think this is a make or break moment, though? Do you think China looks at this, if she does touch down in Taiwan and perhaps decides maybe we don't invade Taiwan in the next 18 months, maybe we back off a little bit and wait?
Well, look, China always has blustering language when anybody goes to Taiwan. After my trip, they spent 2 days attacking me and the 2 U.S. senators that I traveled with, both of whom were Democrats. And I think you have to look at what's going on more broadly with regard to China in Taiwan. This is what dictatorships do, Aisha. As you know, Xi Jinping is having some significant domestic problems right now. He is trying in the 20th Party Congress in November to be essentially declared dictator for life. And
this is a good strategic move for him domestically.
And I think a lot of times you look at history, whether it's Hitler or Putin, they create international crises to bring their citizens together to kind of divert attention from what's happening at home.
Now, strangely, Republican Senator Josh Hawley, haven't heard a lot from him lately, vows to vote no on adding Sweden and Finland to NATO, which is actually his reasonings. This is actually the #1 trending story right now here. Here's what he has to say. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, on Monday said he would vote against Finland and Sweden's bid to join NATO. Now, he's just one vote here, but a move that would go against most of his Republican colleagues from both sides, Republicans and Democrats. In his op-ed published by the National Interest, Hawley says the U.S. shouldn't expand its security commitments in Europe due to a more pressing threat from China. He says, quote, Finland and Sweden want to join the Atlantic Alliance to head off further Russian aggression in Europe. That is entirely understandable given their location and security needs. But America's greatest foreign adversary doesn't loom over in Europe. It looms in Asia. I'm talking, of course, of the People's Republic of China. And when it comes to Chinese imperialism, the American people should know the truth. The United States is not ready to resist it. Expanding American security commitments in Europe now would only make that problem worse and America less safe. This is what Josh Hawley has to say. It's interesting. Finland and Sweden in May announced their intentions to join NATO following Russia's attack on Ukraine. The government of 19 NATO countries have since ratified the 2 Nordic nations joining the alliance. 11, including the U.S., have yet to do so. All 30 member states must approve the additions, but they're in the process of doing this. Finland and Sweden's requests have received widespread support from both Democrats and Republicans. Hawley was one of only 11 Republicans who opposed the $40 billion Ukraine package passed in May. A lot of people don't realize this, but that $40 billion that was sent to Ukraine was not really passed by Biden. I mean, he signed it at the end, but it was passed by both Republicans and Democrats. Only 11 Republicans voted no against it in the Senate. So it was a bipartisan package. Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly supported it because it's basically to resist Putin in Russia. Hawley says, as the 2018 and 2022 U.S. national defense strategies both acknowledge, the United States cannot defeat China and Russia in 2 major wars at the same time, and we are not where we need to be in Asia. He says, in the face of this stark reality, we must choose. We must do less in Europe and elsewhere in order to prioritize China and Asia. He says the U.S. government shouldn't abandon NATO. I mean, if we did, we'd be on our own. We wouldn't have all these allies, all these other countries. He suggests European allies could take on more responsibility in defending Europe by investing more in their own militaries. This stance goes against basically the majority of all the other Republicans. Mitch McConnell last week just said that the United States would be fortunate to have two new treaty allies as impressive and capable as Finland and Sweden. I also actually agree with Mitch McConnell here in this particular instance, because if something like that ever happened, which I don't think is likely at this point, you would want to have two more countries on our side as opposed to having two less countries. Remember that China actually has 4 times the population of us. And of course, they have nukes, we have nukes, Russia has nukes. Nothing of that scale would even be a good scenario in any way, shape, or form. You wouldn't even want to see anything of that scale happening. So, what Josh Hawley is even talking about, I don't think is even I don't even think that anything along those lines would even be good. So, having two more major countries on our side would be a good thing. Would be a good thing, and would deter even more. It'd be different than like the U.S. versus China, but having like the U.S. and 30 other countries all part of a major alliance is a major deterrent to somebody like China or Russia going against the war. That's a big part of the reason why Putin doesn't want to attack any country in NATO, and he doesn't want NATO to expand, because he knows he can't attack any single country in NATO. Because once you attack a single country or a part of any country in NATO, it's an instant declaration of war against every single country in NATO. You're literally protected by 30 other countries. So yeah, it's and Putin has his hands full with all of Ukraine. I mean, look at how long it's going on with just Ukraine and Putin, right? Imagine if there was 30 other countries involved. Yeah, it's like being a part of a massive team as opposed to being by yourself. Yeah, and honestly, if Ukraine was a part of NATO, they were trying to be a part of NATO for years, and look at what's happened. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. And there's a major bipartisan bill. We're actually seeing Republicans and Democrats get along on a few things here today. There's a lot of things they're not getting along with as well. But we are seeing some things they're getting along with here today, which is ironic as well. But bipartisan senators introduce a bill to codify abortion rights here. You can see another headline here: abortion rises on list of Americans' most important problems. It's really getting up there in one of the top major issues here on Americans' minds. Some people for it, some people against it, some people upset about the lack of, even if you're pro-life, the lack of not being able to have exceptions for rape, and not having exceptions for miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies and things like that. The no exceptions rule being in there as well. But you can see here a bipartisan group of senators on Monday introduced legislation that would codify the right to an abortion into federal law. This is senators, right? Democrats and Republicans, but it faces an uncertain future. So remember, this would override anything that the Supreme Court would do if they pass a law from the House and the Senate. Okay, that overrides the Supreme Court if they actually pass it into law like this. Okay, they would need 10 Republican votes, though, and all the Democrats. So they would need 60 votes to do this. The bill from Senators Tim Kaine, Lisa Murkowski, which is one Republican vote there already, Kirsten Sinema, and Susan Collins, which would be 2 Republican votes already. So you would only need 10 Republican votes. You would only need 8 more. Comes after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the landmark abortion rights case, and left the authority to regulate the procedure to individual states. And of course, we know that there's already over a dozen states that have overturned this, And some states, like Ohio, that have done it with no exceptions. And of course, we've seen the landmark case where the 10-year-old rape victim was denied an abortion, even though she was a rape victim. She had to travel out of state, and they said, sorry, no exceptions at all. So, and again, even if you have a miscarriage, sorry, no exceptions. Uh, a lot of states, and more happening as a lot of Republican-led states here are. And I'm not giving an opinion here. It's the Republican-led states that are going forward with this. Um, they're actually banning the miscarriage drugs as well, because the reasoning there is that some people could use that for an abortion as well. And same thing with ectopic pregnancies that could a woman could die from, um, because again there's a baby in there, and even after a miscarriage, the miscarriage has to come out. But this is the problem here: is there's so many different circumstances that women can't even get help after miscarriages, because there's still a baby in there, even though the baby is lost. States like Ohio and several other states are saying there's no exceptions. There's no medical treatment. It's really a tough situation here. 9 out of 10 um, people, adults, I should say, polled, really think that there should be exceptions like this and rape. So this is kind of the issue with the no exceptions rule. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments. But this new bill here aims to prevent states from enacting laws that impose an undue burden on access to pre-viability abortions, while also allowing some reasonable limits on post-viability abortions, so long as they don't impact the life and health of the mother. The bill does not define viability on what would constitute a danger to the life and health of a mother. It's interesting. The bipartisan legislation is an attempt to find a middle ground on abortion rights after a Democrat only effort, the Women's Health Protection Act, failed twice on the Senate floor this year. The legislation would have codified Roe while also expanding abortion access. Every Republican voted against it, as well as Democratic Senator Joe Manchin previously. Since the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs versus Jackson, dozens of states have either completely banned abortion or severely restricted access to the procedure. The bipartisan legislation also ensures access to contraception. Remember that was actually voted down as well here recently by Republicans, with in a very strange vote. A lot of people couldn't even figure that one out. Abortion rights advocates are concerned Republican state legislatures, emboldened by the decision overturning Roe, could try to outlaw some contraceptives, birth controls, and also Plan B and in uterine devices. There is also concern that Griswold versus Connecticut, the Supreme Court case that granted a personal right to contraception, could be overturned as well. Lisa Murkowski, a Republican senator, said, quote, for 5 decades, reproductive health care decisions were centered with the individual. We cannot go back in time in limiting personal freedoms for women. Can let me know your thoughts on this. But it's not clear if the bipartisan bill will be brought to the Senate floor. It's likely to get oppositions from Democrats for being too conservative and from Republicans who don't want to allow any abortion rights at all, which would include miscarriages, which are dangerous to women who have miscarriages and could potentially die. Yeah, so we're in a tough landscape right now, and there's people on both sides of the fence here, pro-life and pro-choice. and it's a tough battle right now. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here. This could be a middle ground bill that could happen. I'll keep you up to date. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so you get notifications when we go live with new videos. It's completely free to do so. And new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see my new video on Senator Joe Manchin with his new details on this new bill coming out and new checks coming out here as well. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.